Well, good day, folks, and welcome to another episode of Lumberjack Logic from St. Paul, Minnesota, where we're covering the 2021 legislative session. We're interviewing lawmakers, and actually have my good friend Chris Swedzinski. So we do art shows together, and we've shared rooms and actually slept in a frozen trailer one time.
Oh yeah,
I was down in Iowa.
Almost died. Yeah,
almost died. You know what's that? The heater and the generator and the whole. We've got some good stories, and so I consider Chris a good friend. So obviously it'll be a very cordial interview, but. He's you know me, I'm conservative, and Chris is very conservative as well. And, you know, we're going to talk a little bit about gun control here and some of the laws. There's two bills pending again this year. There was that red flag law last time. But I want you first to just tell the folks where you're from,
sure.
Who you represent, and then
Sounds good.
Get right into it.
Well, hi, my name's Chris Swedzinski. I represent the good people down in southwest Minnesota. My district is House District 16A, which would be Lackaparle, Yellow Medicine, Lyon, and a bit of Redwood County. Mostly in agriculture, a lot of food manufacturing. Schwann's Foods is a big employer in my district. We have a large U.S. bank presence. Action Track Share is another industry that's been growing. Obviously.
I interviewed him.
Actually,
the bank.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because in my other work, I'm a videographer and I do some contract marketing work, and so I interviewed him. Sure.
So we got a lot of great things going on, and we are also a border community. So we border on South Dakota, and so we really feel those pains, especially with the shutdown. Governor Walz's stuff. I can't tell you how many people. Were frustrating business owners that live close to the border that had, rather than people coming in the morning to have coffee in their business establishments or driving, an eighth of a mile over the border to have coffee with the same group of people so that they could sit down with their friends. And so, I think that's the fundamental thing that frustrates people as a border community. We don't just compete against, people in Wisconsin, but we do compete against other states too. They want our jobs. They want our what we do. And so, there's a lot of frustration out there as a border community with having two different states. Christy Nome probably lives about 20 minutes from my district. That's where Castleton, South Dakota, over there, and just right across the border. So, yeah.
That's the difference between good governance and bad in the terms of the governor.
That's right.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the drastic difference. But let's talk a little bit about gun control. I mean, we're obviously both very pro Second Amendment. Yep. We enjoy hunting. But really, the Second Amendment wasn't created for hunting. That's not the point.
Not at all. The Second Amendment primarily is to defend the Constitution, to defend individual freedom and individual rights. I mean, that's what kind of the United States was really based upon, is that dynamic that we value the individual, and if you have a tyrannical government, then you have to have the means. I mean, we've seen through history.
Yes, and we've even seen in American history. I can go back to Wounded Knee, Sand Creek. What they do, they had the Native Americans turn in the guns and then committed atrocities.
That's right.
And so, and then you can look to other history, and everybody always talks about Hitler as being part of the far right. He wasn't right at all. I mean, it was state ownership of manufacturing, state ownership of this, take away the guns. That's very left-wing.
Well, they were socialists, right? I mean, that's a fundamental issue. Whenever you're in a society that diminishes the individual, whether it be through abortion, whether it be through education law, whether it be through any number of issues where you say, well, for the greater good, we need to do this, that, or this. All of a sudden, when you have real concerns about something and how it's going to affect either someone's business or someone's family, if they choose to homeschool their family, all those things are fundamental to what it is to be American, and that's the individual. Because,
Oh, now you're talking selfish talk.
Well, that's,
that's. I mean, that's what they view it as now, right? Every freedom we have is now supposed to be viewed as some sort of selfish thing, and I question that, because it's like, wait, so you're telling me that you need me to wear a mask so you can feel safe, and that's why you need me to wear a mask, but that makes me selfish because you need that.
Well, I think, and there's some common sense being left on the table here. If you've already gotten the vaccine, if you've already had the disease, you're still asked, well, you need to wear a mask. Well, so that you keep, how do you transfer to a disease that cannot live within your body because you have antibodies to kill it, right? I mean, that's what the vaccine is. That's what actually herd immunity is. Yeah. But they can't let go of that because it's a control. I mean, the science really doesn't. I mean, youth sports. I mean, I hear over and over and over about youth sports on how we're asking these professional players. So you go to a Timberwolves game, which we don't, but if you watch one on television, which I don't, or football, which I don't. Walk away from them. I mean, go support your local high school players and just stop buying jerseys. Stop this garbage. Yeah. But they aren't forced. Those professional athletes aren't, because why? Because it's bad for them. Yeah. But here we're having our little kids, our 7th, 8th, 6th, 5th, 4th graders forced to play basketball, run back and forth with a mask over their face. I mean, come on, folks. I mean, the chance of transmission is exceptionally low. The CDC says it's not a good idea. Yep. So let's follow the science. But we digress. Obviously, we got off the path a little bit there, Neil. But I mean, we're here to talk about gun rights, yes. And I can't tell you enough. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but Biden has just released what his plan is. His plan is to, 1, magazine ban. 2, allow individuals to sue gun manufacturers. Yep. I think his exact words were, we want to bankrupt the gun manufacturers out of existence. So, for one, a strategic standpoint is one of the reasons why, so that these businesses actually exist within the United States. Yeah. There's a reason why T-shirts aren't made in the United States anymore, or pants, is because we sold the equipment to China. Yes. Right? So if we create this, it's not like these machines are going to waste, it's just they're going to go someplace else. Yes. And we're not going to have the actual strategic ability to make firearms, make ammunition here in the United States. I mean, this is a national security issue. It is a national, and that's why a lot of those things are in place. Why are those laws in place? Because they know that if individuals are allowed to sue those organizations, sue those businesses, and with federal ammunition right here in the state of Minnesota, those jobs are going to be gone.
And the fact is, you can sue them if their gun malfunctions. Yes. Okay, we're talking about suing for the use of a product. Okay, right. Totally different. But let's go into the red flag law. Yep. I think they call it, right?
Yep. Yeah. So we have red flag laws. We've got a few other. There's 2 policy positions that have really been pushed lately. Is red flag laws, and that is essentially saying, if you are someone that's been deemed by a judge without due process. So yes. You actually haven't been able to tell your story. Say,
there's been no case.
Let's say you have an ex-wife that really doesn't like you and said, he's a big hunter. That's a big part of his life. I'm going to use this as a vengeance. You say, he beat me and I fear for my life. Maybe true, maybe not. You do not even have the ability to represent yourself in front of a judge to say, hey, I disagree. I don't think. They can just say, well, you've got a red leg confiscation. You've just lost your Second Amendment rights. Right? I mean, that's the type of bills that are looking to move forward. The other ones are universal gun registration. Do you think
that'll make it through the House?
I doubt it. I think there's a few Democrats that may believe what we believed on that Second Amendment that I think will
probably
pause those
buttons. Twin Cities?
Not from the Twin Cities.
From the Twin Cities.
Right? I mean, when you have gang-related shootings, who do you blame? NRA members, right? I mean, that's the obvious choice. So,
because obviously it was the NRA members' fault that the gang actually committed violence.
That's right. That's what I think. But, and then the second one is universal registration, which would be universal background checks. And essentially the only way for that to actually work, I think it's like House File 614, and I'm not sure what the Senate file is how do so who actually owns the gun, how do you track it, and once a gun is a piece of private property ever its own, right? And so in order for me to, let's say, hey, Neil, I got this really neat gun, or hey, Neil says, hey, I'm going to go out west and hunt for elk. I don't have a big gun. Can I borrow one? Today I can say absolutely. Yeah. If that law passes, we would have to do a background check to transfer that gun to you. So this is not just for sales. This is also for borrowing. And so, because do you have to keep a receipt whether or not you bought the gun, and all of a sudden, there is no deferral.
Or family transfers.
Or family transfers, potentially. They always say, well, family transfers really won't count. Well, whenever you put the government in control of something, it doesn't always work. So
never really.
Those are two. And on the positive side, really playing offense. Lisa Demuth, great legislator, has a co-author, Matt Bliss. He's a legislator from up by Bemidji. They are co-authoring a piece of legislation for Stand Your Ground, which is essentially what's been passed a lot of different places across Florida, I think Kentucky, Iowa, hey, if someone comes in your home, under current Minnesota law, you have a duty to retreat, right? Hey, I want to separate myself, rather than you saying, you know what, I'm going to protect. I feel in danger. I don't feel I should have to run.
Yeah.
I can stand my ground in my home. It's my home. I feel in danger. You can engage in a way that you feel appropriate, right? Yeah. Under current law, there's a duty that you need to retreat. And we feel that really isn't practical. That is not a real way to live your life. If you're in your home, that is your place, that is your kingdom.
Yeah,
you should be able to protect it without really, you're assumed innocent, right? I mean, Minnesota law is that you're assumed innocent, but unless it's with a gun, they assume that you're guilty of something. And that's just the wrong way to thinking. So
yeah. Well, what about, just take somebody who, for example, owns their home, doesn't carry homeowners insurance, right? Mm-hmm. They're just supposed to give all that up, and people say, well, it's just stuff. And my argument to that is, it is not just stuff. Stop saying it's just stuff, and stop giving them that point, because it's not stuff, because you gave up your life to get said stuff. Okay, your home, how many years of your life did you give up or work so you could buy your home? And then how long are we going to just allow our insurance rates to increase just because we're going to allow people to take our stuff? Or have them carjack our cars in Minneapolis because the law enforcement community can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And so anyways, but that's, so there's that one that's going forward. So let's go back here. What was the House file on the bad one?
I think was it 614? I forget. Yeah, so that would be the universal gun registration, which would be universal background check.
Yep.
And then I don't know if there's a file number yet for a red flag law, but that would is. I know I'm having a tough time with that.
So those are two that you want to be, calling in opposed to. But then we've got the Stand Your Ground, which is House File which?
That is, I really don't know off the top of my head. But Lisa Demuth is the chief author. Matt Bliss is a co-author. So if you just Google those names and look up that particular, it'll pop right up.
You can get right on the Minnesota House website, and you can see all the bills.
Yep.
So just look for Demuth as a sponsor, because they list them by their sponsors or authors of the bill.
Yep. And I would just say, when it comes to gun issues, there's nothing better than Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. That's the good one.
Yes.
Rob Dorr is there's the bad group, which is Minnesota Gun Owners, and then the good group, which is actually a legitimate group, not a fake group like the other one, Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. And
this is something you guys need to know. There's the Dorr brothers. They are into just basically making a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Taking people's, they tried to kind of come in, they came in like a wolf in sheep's clothing, grabbed people's lists of names, and then used it to fundraise. And they're in 16 states. They really don't do anything other than raise money.
Well, they make videos. And they do a good job of it, right? I mean, and then they work to actually pit Republicans against each other, saying, well, this guy is blah, 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 or not pro-life or not pro-gun. It's really unfortunate, because we have our hands full just to defeat Democrats. But we have, what we'd probably call if I'm a Democrat, I would send money to those groups, the bad groups, because they will dilute our ability to fight back. And that's exactly what they do.
Yeah. And was there one other positive?
Yeah, there was Stand Your Ground, and then there's a constitutional carry, potentially. It's unlikely to move forward. Currently we have Minnesota law that, you go in for a permit every 5 years. We're looking at ways to digitize that. So right now you actually have to physically go in to sign your papers. And we're trying to actually allow those to be just digitally signed because of all the issues with COVID. If you can do that to vote, digitally sign, why can't you do that with a bunch of different stuff? And just bring some common sense, right?
It's like, well, you don't even have to sign for voting. I just want you to know that. Like, that's a real thing. You don't even have to sign anymore. we're in a mail-in only district, and they cross that out, tell us they don't even want us to sign. Yet to get my carry permit renewed, I have to go in and take a class. It doesn't matter if COVID's going on. I have to go in and take my class. I have to fill out the forms, sign the forms, present ID, all of this. Okay. So just understand the Democrats just want it both ways. That's always who they are and who they've been. It's just it's all duplicitous. It's all intellectually dishonest, but they don't care because the media supports them. But we're changing that. And
it's also a lot of astroturfing. So you've got Michael Bloomberg that dumped tens of millions of dollars into races around the country. I think $5 or $6 million went into the state of Minnesota to defeat the House Republican or the Senate Republican caucus. They really targeted their money in on about 5 or 6 seats. They spent millions of dollars to make sure that they had a anti-gun, anti-business, anti-family climate here in the state. And we only have a 1-seat majority in the Senate. I don't think people in Minnesota quite realize how close we are to being California, how close we are to having what's going on in Washington, D.C. be right here in our state. And we'd be talking about gun confiscation, but we're not because we have the Senate. We would be talking about magazine bans, but we're not because we have a 1-seat majority in the Senate. So get involved with your local BPOUs, stand strong, write your reps, whether a Democrat or Republican, and let your voice be heard because we could very well lose this battle if we're not.
One vote away.
We're 1 vote away.
And so this is one of the things. I know Governor Walz sucks, right? And so there's this recall Governor Walz. But the fact is, Governor Walz, he comes out, Flanagan then becomes governor. She would be even worse. And then you're going to lose a seat in the Senate.
Yeah, that would be the president of the Senate, which would be Jeremy Miller, would be forced from that position to the lieutenant governor position. And so his seat may or may not be it's a Republican seat now, but it's a Democrat House member and a Republican House member that sits within that Senate district. So we could potentially lose that race. We were vastly outspent 2-to-1, 3-to-1 in a lot of these districts because we don't have, we always, as Republicans and conservatives, say, oh, you're the party of the rich. Well, that's not really true. The liberals, they're out to cancel and they're out to spend their millions to defeat Republicans. And they show it feet on the street and with their checkbooks. And so, if you spent this last election on the couch watching the news, you probably didn't do your job. You should have been out there door knocking. You should have been out there doing 100 different things to get the job done.
Go to some parades.
Go to a parade. Do what you need. Write a letter to the editor. But we've got the Republican Party's got a problem that it's a lot of circle. We got these 5 individuals that left the GOP caucus, and it's a circle firing squad. They'd rather shoot Republicans inside the circle than go out and let's advance and let's actually do some positive things and defeat Democrats. But also let's move a conservative issues forward across the state through legislative means.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Another edition of Lumberjack Logic. I'm going to have Chris on for a couple other shows, but thanks so much for listening. Remember to subscribe and share the content. Like the videos, too. That always helps get their YouTube algorithms up. And on Rumble, you just hit the little plus button for Rumble. So thanks so much for listening.